Salutations, folks. This is a video lesson that goes with the Interpersonal Communication course and Chapter 8, which is Conflict Management. This is going to be a condensed video discussing the lessons out of this week because, as always, there are PowerPoint presentations and chapter reviews uploaded to the content folder as well. This is just kind of go over. I'm not going to go over everything in from the chapter in the lesson. I just kind of want to touch base on the beginning. So, as always, if you see me look off to the side, it's because my book and my notes are off to the side. Alright, so let's talk about conflict itself. What interpersonal conflict is. The book's definition is as follows. If I can get my book situated here. An expressed struggle between at least two interdependent people who perceive incompatible goals, scarce resources, or interference in the achievement of their goals. So, we don't need a textbook to tell us when we're in a conflict. We know when we're in a conflict, either personally because we're upset, or we're reading nonverbal cues and hearing the verbal cues from the other party. We don't need to sit down and be like, oh my gosh, I need to check this book and make sure I'm in a conflict. We know. You know. I know. We know. Sometimes we may not be clued in as soon as others, but we know. So, after the book defines it, it starts talking about elements of conflict. Conflict can occur when there is an issue, obviously, it could be something inside or outside the relationship, interpersonal or intrapersonal, and it's usually when someone is not getting what they want, or they are not, I don't say not getting what they want because that makes it sound like a physical thing, but it's also a mental and emotional aspect as well. Or there's been a miscommunication, or a misalignment of trust, or a misfiring. I'm just going to say misfiring because it involves not just, I'm angry. There could be a multitude of reasons why the conflict begins. And conflict doesn't necessarily mean it's a physical thing. It's an emotional, verbally, psychological as well. So, with that being said, let's move on forward with the different elements of conflict. So, there's an expressed struggle. This is where it's seen. When I say seen, this is the verbal or nonverbal expression of the conflict struggle. Someone can just straight out say, I'm not very happy, or I'm upset, or I need to talk to you about this instance that I don't really appreciate or I don't really like. That's just the verbal straight out. And some people, that's their communication style. They are more just straight honest, straight out, and they put it out on the table. Just get it out of the way. That's their style. Now, there are also nonverbal cues, and we've discussed nonverbal. We just did it. There are nonverbal cues that alert us that maybe someone's not in their happiest state of mind. You can read nonverbal cues. If someone, usually it's like a glare. Like the mom glare, I still have yet to master that. But, there are cues that alert someone going, ooh, okay, someone's not happy here. And each person, and sometimes we don't even realize maybe we're putting out the nonverbal cues that we're not upset. And sometimes we're very, I want to say over the top, that we are, we are upset. You clench teeth. It goes on here, and I'm sure you have communicated with someone. Sorry, my bangs are getting in my face, and I'm like trying to push them out. And you can read their nonverbal cues on how they're feeling before the verbal even comes out. Kind of like preempting the conflict. So we move from this, and then it talks about it has to be at least between two interdependent people. What do I say about two interdependent people? So this is people that are dependent off each other. So this could be a romantic relationship, a friendship, a work dynamic or a family dynamic. If you were completely independent of this person, it would not matter what they did or what they said. It would not affect you. But if there is a relationship between you and this person, something that they have said or something they have done or haven't said affects you. It puts in it, so that is what they mean between at least two interdependent people. You know, it's that person has an effect on you. I'm not saying it's a hold on you, but what they say or do, you know, it can affect you. Okay. Then they go on to talk about incompatible goals, scarce resources, and interference. What falls in here is that the goals, it could be each person wants the opposite of what the other wants, or they could both want the same thing, but they're trying to decide who wants it more or how to get to this goal. And then there's also the factor of time and proximity. Sometimes conflict can happen or can intensify just because maybe you don't get much time together. If you think of like relationships, perhaps you and your partner are on different schedules. Maybe you go to school all day and you work of the evening, or you do all online classes, but you work all day and then you're home of the evening doing schoolwork and, you know, home life. Well, perhaps your partner works the night shift. So like as you are coming home from your job, they are leaving. Or perhaps either one of you works so many days long shifts and so many days off. An example is that at the moment, I teach from home. So I work from home. And I also do the home-based stuff with the Wildlings. So I do the school, you know, we do the homework, the after-school activities, all that is me. That's just how it is. My husband works, and his home base for work is a state away. But yet he also travels for work. So there's times that we don't see each other, and it's mainly because he's worked long hours, and by the time he gets home, you know, I'm finishing up my day and he's finished up his day. So there's not a whole lot of time for communication, or he's gone for X amount of days or weeks. And when he's home, he wants to chill. And when I'm done, when it comes to like, you know, a certain part after weeks or days of like going nonstop, you want that chilled downtime. So, you know, there's an example of how your schedules can also, I don't want to say create conflict, but can intensify if there is conflict. Interference, they also talk about, the book discusses if in case of relationships that are no longer together. So, you know, and if there's children involved, what holiday that child gets with what parent, the split custody, all that, you know, all that can fall under this section of elements of conflict. Then they talk about achieving goals. So people in relationships, they want something. We all want a goal, and it could be, I want to end this conflict, or I want this to happen so it doesn't happen again. Because sometimes conflicts are repeating. It happens. You know, we don't just, sometimes conflict is a one-time deal, and sometimes it's, you know, a repeating deal. But the goal, you know, how can we achieve the goal? That's part of an element as well. So that's what the book discusses when it comes to elements of conflict, but then it kind of talks about conflict triggers. So these are just the things that can bring about conflict or stir conflict. And a big one on the list is criticism. Now, with criticism, some people, you know, there's different situations that you hear criticism and you can take it in and apply it. Think of a work situation, especially if you are new to a business or maybe a school setting. Someone's like, okay, this is good, but a way to make it better is to A, B, C, D. You're not going to fight and be like, oh, no, nay. I do it right all the time. Now, when it comes to a family dynamic, a friendship dynamic, or a romantic dynamic, that can be completely opposite. What one may think is healthy criticism, constructive criticism, doesn't mean it's not taken personally. Okay, my random example of this is I have twin daughters, identical twin daughters, but currently they don't, if you stand them next to each other, one of my twins is about 3 inches taller than the other. She just hit a growth spurt about a year and a half ago. She shot up real tall. So, if you don't know them, yes, but if you know my twins, you can tell that, even though they're identical currently, they're not identical. Like, it's not like mirrored identical. Some older family members will make comments about my one daughter. Oh, she's so much bigger, or, this and that. And I know deep down what they're saying is not from a place, is not mean and not hurtful, but I can't help but think little criticisms like that is a building block for future problems if it continues. Now, my daughter's never said anything. I don't want anybody to think that. But, me hearing it from the outside, that's a constructive criticism. I received a lot of, people receive it, and it doesn't make us feel good sometimes, these constructive criticisms. That's why it's at the top of the list. Then it talks about feeling entitled. Some people, they will believe they're entitled. They're entitled to a good grade. They're entitled to a new car when they turn 6. That creates conflict because sometimes those, unless you put the work in, you're not going to get the good grade. Now, you may be fortunate enough to get a vehicle when you get your license. But, if you're looking, perhaps somebody was looking for a brand new top-of-the-line sports car, and that's just not practical. So that falls under 4. And then there's the perceived lack of fairness. And I'm sure you've heard this line before. That's not fair. My kids use that all the time when I'm sorting out their conflict. That's not fair. Just because you don't think it's fair doesn't mean that it's not fair. You get all those emotions stirred there. Then it also talks about more perceived costs than rewards. When people feel like they're getting less out of the relationship than what they should be, that falls under there. Different perspectives, and different perspectives can create conflict in the sense that political stances, some people are very chill. They don't, I'm Republican, I'm Democrat, I'm liberal, I'm Republican, and my partner is, opposite of me. Or I'm very conservative, but my partner is very liberal. Or I'm this or that, Some people are chill with that, and some people that can be a deal breaker. Spirituality. I cannot talk today, folks. I'm trying to record this lesson, and everything that I've recorded today, I feel like I've just been stumbling over my words. Some people are very chilled with different religious backgrounds. Like, I was, this person here was raised Baptist, or this person here was raised Catholic, and they can intermesh and be okay. But then some people, that is also a deal breaker, That's what we're talking about with different perspectives. And those were very extreme examples of different perspectives, but it's just a way to kind of break it down even more. You could also, they talk about power, like who is in charge. Some people, well, this person's the head of the household, this person does this, or it's equality, all that falls. Other issues are personal flaws, such as like smokers and drinkers, and someone that they consider lazy, all that falls under. There could be, they're okay, I don't care that you do that, but don't do it in the house. Or, I don't want that at all in my work. I don't want to be around it, I don't want you near it, or be like, whatever, floats your boat type situation. Intimacy, like some people are they're very hands-on. When I say hands-on, they're touchy-feely people. So they're the huggers, the pat on the shoulders, the rub, the backs, all of that falls under. And then there's some people that's very happy. They don't want They don't have to be intimate all the time. They don't have to be touchy-feely all the time. It's not to say they don't like to be intimate. They just choose to chill in their own bubble. And there's nothing wrong with that. In personal distance, some people like to be very close to others. They don't understand bubbles. And then other people are very chill. They're cool. They just want to be in their own world. I'll sit on this chair. You sit on that couch. We'll be happy in our world. And then some people we got to be right there. And these are things you generally try to find out when you're starting a relationship, because if it's something that's very important to you in the relationship, whether it be romantic or a friendship, you want to find out these things before it becomes a problem later. Okay, then it talks about stress and lack of rest. Stress and lack of rest is a big factor in triggering conflict. If you have had a super long day and you are super tired, and it's been a week from hell pretty much, you've had finals, you've had overtime at work, the kids have been sick, or you've been sick, just put everything here, car broke down, this happened, the electric bill, let's just put life. You went to the grocery store and threw down $300 and don't know what you bought. There are so many factors that cause stress, and then also lack of rest. I don't sleep very great at night, and this has always been something with me. It is what it is, and I'm trying to better delegate my time in life. But all of that can go, are part of conflicts. If I am super tired and I am super stressed, I am super grouchy, and the slightest thing will set me off. And I try to warn the folks in my house, hey, I didn't get much sleep, so tread lightly. Be straightforward with my family. Then also it discusses, so I don't butcher this one, dialectical tension. This is the tension arising from a person's needs for two things at the same time. So it breaks it down to being separate and connected, and then feelings of being open and closed. So being separate and connected is you may have the desire to be separate from other people, but connected to them at the same time. You want to be invited, but you don't want to go. Okay, that's straightforward. And then feelings of being open and closed is that this is where we want and need various degrees of openness and closeness in our relationships. We want to disclose and we want to be open, but we also want to keep a little to ourselves and not be an open book. That's what they're talking here with that kind of tension. Then the book moves forward and talks about conflict as a process. So there's your source, and this is the prior conditions. This is the phase of conflict process. This is one where it sets the stage for disagreements. You're starting to realize there's some differences there. That something may not be up completely. That then moves us toward the beginning, and this is the frustration awareness. And at this stage, at least one person becomes aware that something's not vibing 100%, on the level. Now, becoming aware does not necessarily mean leads to conflict, but we're just becoming aware that maybe everything's not 100% where we want it to be or how we think it should be. Then we move to the middle, which is kind of the active conflict. This is where you bring attention to the frustration. You bring it out into it becomes an active expressed struggle. You verbally said it, you've non-verbally let it be known. No, this isn't good. We need to chit-chat about this some. It does not necessarily, when we get to the stage, I don't want you to think it's expressively shouting and screaming. It's just bringing awareness to the conflict. Hey, there's something not vibing 100% here. I think we need to chat about it. Which then leaves a tit-tat back and forth. Then it kind of just moves into the end, which is resolution. And this is where you try to manage the conflict. It's progressed to this stage. And not all conflicts are going to end peacefully. They're not going to end wrapped up in a box with a pretty bow and everyone walks away completely happy, smiley, go lucky because they got what they want. Sometimes it's messy. And sometimes, the best decision is to part ways. This is, romantic, friendship, work, whatever the case. So there's routes you can go. Or it can be an amicable, we're not getting what we want. We're not where we want to be. This is not the route we want to be on, so perhaps it's best if we now go our separate routes. And sometimes it's nasty. And sometimes it's like, okay, hey, I want this and you want this. We both want this, but we're on different paths. What can we do to move our path together? How can we move forward with the best intentions for each other and for the future of our relationship? Then it kind of goes into the follow-up. And this is where, in follow-up, it's, if you continue on the path together and you continue to move forward, checking in. Are we good? Is everything okay? Da-da-da. Or it could be you've separated, but perhaps you're still kind to one another. And then it could also be you've separated and it's nasty. Don't go near. It's chaos, But this is where the follow-up goes. And in the follow-up, in this process, it talked about two different conflicts. There's constructive conflict and deconstructive conflict. Constructive conflict is where you build new insights that establishes new patterns in the relationship. So say you both want the same goal. You're not at the same spot in the world, but you kind of want to get on the same path together. So this conflict is, you've discussed ways you can get on the same path to attain the same goal. And it's ensuring that you work your way through this conflict so it doesn't happen again. And it gives some benefits of that conflict is that it clarifies what may need to be changed. Something could be changed. Well, I don't feel like we spend enough time together. Okay. Well, that's something that maybe that can be. Sometimes it can't be changed. Or keeps your relationships interesting. It helps you learn something new. We all have our own language. A love language, is what I fall under, but or language period. Some people are very open in the world. They put everything out there. If something hits them, they say it. They don't think of the recourse. They don't think of the words that leave their mouth. They don't think before they speak. It's out there. Good, bad, evil, ugly, happy, joyful, whatever it may be, it's out there. Some people keep it in. They have a thought, they keep it in. And a lot of these things are based off of who we are, our responses to our upbringing, our world around us. It's just, it's who we are. Some people keep bottled in. Some people will keep it and then break and explode. But, with this, it's discussing, okay, this person's love language is that they need physical reassurance. And by physical reassurance, they need the hand holding or, sitting together on a couch. So a way to do that is okay, well, I will make a conscious effort to be more physically affectionate because that's what you need. And then the other person will be like, well, I understand that you also need time for yourself, so I will make a conscious effort to not push this when you need your downtime space. That's what they're talking about here. So then, if that's constructive, deconstructive is the opposite, which is conflict that dismantles rather than strengthens relationships. Oh, gosh, let's talk about this one. It's a lack of flexibility. And underneath this falls cyberbullying, bullying, hate crime, stalking, physical, verbal abuse. And it's manifestations of, of destructive conflict. And welcome to the wide world of the internet and online. And I feel because of that, people are just more open to being mean and cruel and not kind. A lot of people will type, they become keyboard warriors, and they will type things online that they would never have the audacity to say to someone's face. Because to them, they either A, have complete anonymity, or quasi-anonymity. You may know the person, and they may never say that to your face, but they have no problem with either blasting you on social media, or what you believe in on social media, or sending you a private message to blast you, or a text message. They just some people get a little braver behind a keyboard. But that falls under destructive conflict. All right, so the next is misconceptions, and I'm not going to get into depth about those. I'm just kind of read them off. The first one is conflict is always a sign of poor interpersonal relationship. That's not true. That's not true at all. You can have a good relationship and still have conflict. You can have a great relationship and still have conflict. No one can go 100% of the time without conflict. And it could just be a miscommunication, a misdesired, someone could be tired, someone could be stressed. It's not that it's a poor relationship. It's just that particular moment. It's just something came up and it's just not driving 100%. Conflict can always be avoided. That's not true. Like I said before. And if you're someone that tries to bottle in, it will explode and it will be massive. Like a bomb. Conflict always occurs because of misunderstandings. That's not true. That's not true. Again, we already learned that, conflict can happen because of stress and lack of sleep, or perhaps you're just not even really around each other. So it doesn't necessarily have to be because of misunderstanding. And also, too, the book gives the example. It's not that you can understand exactly what your goal is, but maybe the problem is what each partner believes to be the more important goal. Conflict can always be resolved. Sadly, that's not true. I wish it was in a perfect world, wrapped in a box with a pretty, pretty bow. But sometimes it just can't be resolved. Sometimes you can quietly, amicably walk away, but sometimes it can get nasty, real quick. So it's not always resolved. And those are the misconceptions. The book then talks about the different kinds of conflict types. I'm not going to get into depth about those. Like I said, we have the PowerPoint in the lesson reviews. And then it talks about conflict and power. And I'm not going to talk about that either. I really just wanted to talk about the elements of conflict and the misconceptions. And I also just wanted to touch base on those for this video, along with the process of conflict. Like I said, we don't need a book to tell us we're in conflict. Sometimes it may not come to us as quick as what our partner may want, but we know when we're in a conflict, verbally or non-verbally. The book also discusses ways the different kinds of conflict management styles. And real quick on those, there's like avoidance. Pretty sure that's self-explanatory. Accommodation, and this is just where you're just kind of giving in. You're like, okay, whatever you want, whatever makes you happy, that's fine. I threw hands up on that one just talking about it. Competition style, which is this management style, stresses winning a conflict at the expense of the other. That can get ugly real quick too. And then there's compromise, which is, it is what, we all know compromise. And then collaboration, and this is the style that uses other-oriented strategies to achieve a positive solution for all involved. This is where you actively work together, and then you're not set it up as a game as I'm going to win and you're going to lose. Ha ha ha. Tra-la-la-la-la. Then from there, it just talks about the different ways you can manage your conflict. Like I said, this is just a real quick snippet video lesson to go along with Chapter 8 of our book. So, look over the PowerPoint presentations and the Word documents. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye.